This is the Friday, November 9th, 2012 version of the Market Plus segment. Joining us now are Elaine Cubb and Walt Hackney. Guys, welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. We got a lot of questions here from our Twitter and Facebook pages. And Walt, this one's to you. Robert in Oklahoma is asking, what is your price outlook for feeder cattle in the spring? He says wheat pasture in Oklahoma is very limited.
It is. That's a fact. Plus the fact, a lot of wheat producers are reluctant because of the fear of damage to their crop, with wheat worth somewhere in the $8 a bushel range. So that's logic. The other thing being the price of feeder cattle in the spring is going to be very aggressive due to limitation of numbers. We've got the lowest cow herd in near history in the beef cow herd. We got totally decimated with the 2011 drought and the 2010 drought. This year, the drought worked its way through the Midwest and the western states. As a result of all of that, the availability of feeder cattle will probably be more so than it was this past spring, and we had a highly aggressive market at that time.
All right, so things to look forward to there if you're a feeder cattle.
If I was a cow-calf operator, I would be extremely optimistic. As a buyer, I'm reluctant because I don't know what the projected outcome of these high-priced feeders this next spring is going to be. We don't know where the deferreds are going to lead us, and we need to know those things.
All right, and here's kind of a follow-up to that. Looking into your crystal ball, do you have any expectations for next week's Cattle on Feed report? What do you think we're going to see?
Oh, it won't be anything. It'll be nearly a non-event. It can't show any excessive amount of cattle on feed. It can't show any excessive placements. It may show a reduction in marketing. That would not be bullish. As a result of that, some people are asking me as we speak, Mike, what do you think about the fat cattle market? I say, I think if you had cattle for sale, last week was the time to have sold them.
All right. So get your time machine ready and get back there. Elaine, this one's to you. Todd in Rice Lake, Wisconsin is looking into your crystal ball for next year, corn or soybeans. What do you see being more profitable?
Well, that is going to be highly dependent on South America, I would say. But at this point in time, if you look at the stocks-to-use ratio, what does the world need more? What is the world more short on? You're still looking at corn being the winner, which is just as well because we have a dry fall, and I think a lot of guys are putting down fertilizer and planning ahead on a big corn planting for 2013.
So with that in mind, do you have any advice for producers as to selling any of next year's crop? Do you say wait and see what happens there?
Well, there is a huge potential that if things don't go bad in South America and we grow 15 billion bushels of corn here in the U.S. in 2013, that it could be drastically bearish at some point in time and move quickly. So yes, even though this is not really the time frame seasonally when you would want to start making forward sales for 2013, I think, you know, maybe once we get through the end of this year, once we get all the fun stuff taken care of and the general economic uncertainty for this fiscal cliff, once that's out of the way and you want to start making 2013 forward sales in 2013, January, February timeframe, I would say above 650 on that December contract. I don't see anything wrong with selling 650 corn, right? You can probably make money on that.
All right. Looking at this one's, Elaine, I'm going to address it to you, but it's Walt. Looking at the market as we go forward, we had some good news today on the broader market. You know, exports up, consumer confidence is up. Folks are feeling a little bit better about the economy. Walt, you mentioned we were seeing all-time highs for 10 days ago, choice beef, cutout values and all of that. Where do you see that headed as we roll past this fiscal cliff into 2013? Is the strong economy, if the economy continues to strengthen, do you think consumers are going to be better able to pay these prices that cattle producers are going to need?
In the U.S., maybe, but when you talk about the economy, you're really talking about the U.S. economy, but the global economy, and maybe there's some hopefulness there. It seems like Europe has done what they needed to do, and it cost them a bunch of money, and we had to price it into the price of the dollar, but they've taken care of it. China is still a big wild card, though. When you talk about a global economy, they tend to sound like they're not as robust, or they're not growing as robustly as they were before. And they have even made noises saying that they don't intend to import as many soybeans from us as they did previously. So I wouldn't look at the U.S. as at signs of a U.S. economy being a huge driver of our agriculture market futures prices yet. But perhaps certainly with the retail, meat demand, that might be more direct link there.
Well, I think common sense would indicate this country is used to luxury beef.
Yeah.
And you can use all the negatives in the world about that term being compared to pork, the predictability of pork versus beef. The cheapest of the whole three is the poultry. But if people's got extra money and the recovery through the economy, they're going to pick up more beef. That is the solution to the dilemma that we have as we speak in the beef industry, is the sluggish market we've endured nearly all fall of this beef market. The people simply can't continue giving these prices.
And it's a direct cause and effect in the U.S. U.S. consumer dollars, right?
All right. Final question, Walt. And this is from Brent in Northwest Oklahoma. He's asking, how is the continuing drought in central and the southern regions of the United States? We know we're still 12 to 16 inches of rain below what's needed in South Dakota and as we get through the plains. How is that going to affect cow numbers as we roll through this next year if we get another drought year in those regions?
Well, I think that logic would indicate that if they can't get more moisture than they currently have in the Southwest, that's western Oklahoma, West Texas, southeast Colorado, if they can't get enough to produce spring grass, there's no need to worry about the cow herd down there. They can't afford to put $200 a ton in the hay. You can't support a cow with $200 a ton hay and winter her. So you're better off not having her. We had a huge liquidation in 2010 and 2011. We've had more liquidation in the Midwest in 2012 due to the same factors. So if we don't have spring grass, and it's all dependent on the moisture.
Yeah. At this point in time, like 84% of the high plains is in a severe drought.
They certainly are.
Yep.
And not a lot of good news on long-term forecasts. Do you guys see any relief out there as we look forward?
Well, I don't know what they're looking for in the winter, but it's certainly not unprecedented to have many years of drought. We have to think about that. We would think you're never going to have this many years in a row of a poor harvest or poor yields, but there's nothing that says we can't. I mean, the 50s were like that, the Dust Bowl years. If we had several more years of this drought, things get...
Mike, to indicate how hard it is down there, they can get a rain today, but it's so dry that rain is only 50% moisture.
Wow. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up this edition, unless you guys have anything else to add. No, not leaving on a terribly upbeat note, but...
Oh, I'll just to add to this of the dry weather, and a little bit of rain can get like the winter wheat crop. I look at this from the winter wheat crop standpoint, and then it had the worst condition ratings that the National Agricultural Statistics Service have ever released this early in November. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to make it through the winter. If it gets rain, wheat is a tough crop.
Yeah.
It's green. I was just in Kansas this earlier this week, and it looks nicely green so far because it's so tough, and it could make it through the winter. So you're right to look at the forecast, the winter, long-term winter forecast to be the deciding factor in a lot of these things.
Fall rains and doesn't have to be continual or that consistent. Fall rains can make a wheat pasture crop. Will it make grain crop? I don't know, but no one really cares as long as they can pasture cattle on it.
That's right. So keep an eye on the skies, watch for some rain, and thank you so much, Elaine Cubb and Walt Hackney. Appreciate having you both here.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.